So I've been trying this espresso with orange juice for quite a while now, and I noticed someone saying that this is called a sunrise. It's okay, it's good, it's interesting, the flavor, it's very explosive. Anyways, today we're talking about Lightroom editing, specifically for portrait photos. A lot of them are very subtle and simple actually, but that tiny little change would change the photo drastically. It just makes the photo more as a whole. It increases the quality a tad more, and that little increase is what makes it count. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we're gonna do and take a look at is the white balance and the exposure. We're gonna just pull this up real quick right here. Let's go ahead and add a tad bit of exposure. The white balance, temperature seems okay. I think I like it a little bit colder. And as you see, there's this weird magenta tint in there. So let's go ahead and drag the tint and adjust that. Probably around here. And of course, this really depends on personal taste. So once we have the base down, then I'm gonna go ahead and add, let's say, a preset. This one looks pretty good. And right away, this photo looks amazing already. By the way, all of my presets will be down in the description if you're interested. Again, all of these adjustments doesn't have to be drastic. You can play around with it and see how you like it. And one thing over here that we can do to really focus on her skin tone is the HSL slider. So you see we're at the saturation here. If we pull this tool over here, adjust saturation by dragging in the photo. Let's start with saturation first, and then just hover your mouse towards her skin tone to the place that you want to adjust the setting by either dragging on a trackpad like up or down to adjust the color, or you can use two fingers by pulling it up or down like so on the trackpad. I think I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up around this. Alright, right there looks good. And then again, we can adjust the hue here in the exact same way. Let's go ahead and drag like so. So as you see, this goes like, oh, way too magenta. And I probably don't want her face to be too green. So let's go ahead and just kind of keep it around here. Same thing for luminance. We can go ahead and give it a try over here. Like so. There you go. You can always go back and forth with the hue, saturation, and luminance slider, as well as going back to the white balance and adjust temperature and tint accordingly to your own taste and style. The next tip I want to get into is to remove the blemishes and spots on the face. And it's actually quite simple to do that inside Lightroom. You don't have to go to Photoshop for this. So go ahead and zoom in on a spot that you want to find and kind of remove the blemishes. And then we'll go to spot removal. Make sure you have heal toggle on. I find heal better than clone in a way where it blends better inside the photo and kind of just like smooth it out in a more natural way. The main difference between clone and heal is that heal brings two spots together and kind of blends in together. As for clone, it copies directly from another spot. You're not really removing the spot, you're kind of like replacing it. And that is why I like using heal better, because it blends in better in my opinion. We'll adjust the brush size, and then let's go ahead and do this one. Right when we click on a spot, Lightroom will find a similar location for the spot. And as you see here, the spot has been removed. And you can repeat the process over and over again until you're satisfied with your photo. So if we adjust the opacity, once we have the spot removed, you can see it, we can bring it back with opacity like so. But in this case, we're trying to remove it completely. So I'm gonna keep the opacity at 100. So the next thing that we can do here is to kind of smooth out the skin. He probably doesn't need it, but I'm gonna do it anyways. Doesn't matter if he likes it or not. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and go to masking and select brush. I'm gonna adjust my brush size real quick here. And then now we're gonna just brush through the places that's his skin. Let's try not to get the eyes or anything. I think my brush size is a bit too small, but should be okay. Alright, I'm gonna try not to get the eyebrows as well, not the eyes, not the hair. I'm gonna get his neck too over here. Alright, about there is fine. We're not gonna go too detailed. He's not gonna care that much about his, smoothness of the face. But what I want to show you here is that you can adjust the clarity and texture, just kind of like smooth it out. As you see, this will really change this face and make it really smooth looking. Remove it too crazy. Okay, yeah, maybe I could. If we go all the way to 100 negative on both of them, his face looks like smooth, like baby's ass. and that looks super fake, so let's not do that. -30 on texture and then -40 on clarity. Let's do that. Now another way to do this, and it's probably a faster way, is that you can come to effects. Down here you'll see soften skin. There's a normal one and there's a light one. You probably need the normal one. Let's go ahead and try it. And right away it looks pretty good already. Let's go ahead and try the light. And personally, I think I prefer the light version than the soften skin one. And if you take a look over here, basically what it does is it adjusts the texture and clarity. You can also do that manually if you want. And you'll see that and notice soften skin light edited. What I like to do here after I soften the skin is that I'll bump up the sharpness a tad bit, ever so slightly, so the softened skin doesn't look too fake. I feel like adding a bit of sharpness kind of compensate that softness, so it makes it more real and natural. And by the way, this photo was taken with the Ricoh GR3X, which is surprisingly sharp. It looks so good. If you haven't watched that video yet, I'm gonna put it up here. It's really fun camera to play with. I feel like the masking tool on Lightroom has gotten so much better. There are so many new functions. Not to mention the select subject, select skies, and now we can even have different effects to choose from. So similarly, we can do the same thing with the eyes. So as for this photo, let's go ahead and zoom in. Okay, that's a little close, but okay, should be alright. We're gonna go ahead and brush her eye, and let's go ahead and brush both of them. Let's come over here, go to Effects, Custom, let's go to Iris Enhance. And if you go to the adjustment, basically it bumped up the exposure as well as the clarity. We can go ahead and adjust that if we want more. Maybe not too much like this, that's a bit crazy. Let's tune it down a bit, like right there. Hopefully this will look better once we zoom out. Alright, it's actually a bit too much in my opinion, so let's go ahead and adjust that. So we can go back to the mask and just kind of dial down the exposure a bit. That's much better. It's not as crazy as before. I feel like with masking, you really have to dial in and make very subtle adjustments. Any big changes will pretty much ruin the whole photo. Even though they're very small changes, you can still tell right away as a whole. The next thing I like to use for a lot of my portrait photos are the Radial Gradient filters, or the radial filters, however you call it. And essentially what it does is that it draws more attention and focus towards the subject. So let's take a look at this photo. This might not be the best example, but we'll just go with this. What I usually do is to draw like a small circle on my subject's face and then just add a tad bit of exposure on top right there. Very subtle, very small adjustments. And if you take a look at the list of the masking tools, you have brush, linear gradient, and radial gradient. Usually I'll use the radial first on the face of the subjects or on the subject itself as a whole. Probably easier if I create another radial gradient filter, but this time we're gonna make it bigger. Right there is good, and we're gonna go to invert. So now that we have invert toggled on, all the adjustment that we do is gonna be on the highlighted area in this case. And now we can go ahead and drag the exposure down a bit, and essentially making it feel kind of like a vignette, but it's not just like balanced vignette over the photo. It's specifically for her, the model, the subject. This way we can attract more attention towards the subject. But after adding that customized vignette for this photo, we can go to contrast and kind of just bring it down a tad bit right there. Tune down the clarity and then texture as well. I'm gonna just tune down the clarity like 35, -35 and -30 for texture. And what that does is the background, we're gonna just kind of really blur the background a lot more with this mask. And furthermore, if you want to, you can come back to effect. All the way down here, you can save the current setting as new presets. I haven't saved any because I feel like every photo is kind of different, and every single time I'm adjusting it differently. So this is really up to you. If you use this a lot, then I guess it'll make sense if you save like a filter, like a setting filter. And in this case, I'll just add one more here. I'll just like portrait outer mask and create. This way I'll have something to start with really quickly and I can adjust accordingly towards a different photo. And I feel like this last radial gradient filter or linear is something that I use quite often for my photos. It's a very easy way for you to draw a lot of attention towards your subject for the audience. And when used correctly, it really enhances the photo itself. This might be my favorite tool for portrait overall. So these are the 5 or 6. Was it 6 or 5? I lost track already. Anyways, hopefully these little tiny editing tips in Lightroom will help you to get better portraits. I know a lot of these are very subtle changes, but overall, as a whole, if you add every single one of them, it's gonna make your portrait pop and look much better. If you like this kind of Lightroom tutorial photo editing videos, definitely check out this one next. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.